I flew home on a 3-day emergency leave, the kind the army only approves when someone in your family dies, and even then they act like you're asking for a weekend at the beach. My sister Megan was gone, her heart giving out, according to the doctor who barely looked up from his tablet. 38, healthy, a black belt in yoga or whatever that counted for these days. It made no sense, but people love slapping the word natural on anything they don't want to investigate. The day of her funeral was windy, cold, and annoyingly bright, the kind of weather that feels like it's mocking you for trying to grieve. I stood near the front row, close enough to hear the pastor but far enough that I didn't have to shake hands with every person who pretended they had known Megan well. My uniform was in my suitcase, but I'd changed into a black dress just to avoid the "thank you for your service" comments. This wasn't about me. Mitchell Kemp, my older brother, kept putting on that devastated face like he was auditioning for a courtroom scene in a cable drama. His wife Beth stood next to him, hands shoved deep into her pockets like she was waiting for someone to tell her where the real party was. I'd seen soldiers fake emotions better than these two. I didn't say a word to them. I didn't have to. The way they avoided eye contact told me enough. After the service, I was trying to slip away before the casserole brigade cornered me, when a tall man in a dark suit walked straight toward me with the determination of someone about to deliver bad news. David Grant, CEO of Westmont Trading Group. My sister's boss. A man who usually belonged on magazine covers talking about quarterly returns. Not in a cemetery in Colorado. "Laura," he said quietly, "we need to talk. Not here." I blinked at him. "Okay, about what?" He glanced at Mitchell and Beth lingering near the grave like they didn't want to get dirt on their shoes. Then he leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "You need to come to my office, today." "That sounds dramatic," I said. "What's going on?" He swallowed, jaw tight, eyes scanning the crowd like he expected someone to be listening. "Your sister came to me last week. She was scared. She asked me to keep something safe for her." I frowned. "What kind of something?" "Documents," he said. Then his voice dropped even lower. "But listen carefully. Don't tell Mitchell. Don't tell Beth. Don't tell anyone in your family. You could be in danger." I stared at him, waiting for a punchline that didn't come. "In danger from who?" I asked. He didn't answer. He just stepped back, nodded once, and walked away like we'd just arranged a drug deal. So that's how my afternoon started. I watched him leave, feeling the chill in the air settle deeper into my bones. My sister had reached out to me from beyond the grave. And whatever she wanted me to see, it wasn't going to be something simple. Stepping back from the weight of the warning, I headed straight for the restroom just to breathe without someone watching my face. Grief hit in waves, but confusion was the undertow, dragging me deeper every time I thought I had my footing. When I splashed cold water on my face, it didn't clear my head. It only made the dread settle more firmly in my chest, like it had been waiting for permission. I dried my hands on a thin paper towel and walked out before anyone could ask if I was holding up okay. I'd heard that question 20 times already, and every time, it made me want to laugh in the least appropriate way. Holding up? My sister just died under circumstances that didn't add up. My mother looked like she might crumble if someone breathed wrong near her, and my father hadn't spoken more than 10 words since we arrived. Holding up wasn't even an option. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The sound made me flinch. It was still too close to the tone I'd heard at the graveside when my sister's boss called. His voice had cracked through the funeral haze like a warning siren. I hadn't told anyone what the man said because I was still deciding if I believed it. Before her death, my sister worked for him at a big defense contracting firm. They paid well, offered killer benefits, and demanded absolute loyalty. I knew the type. I'd worked with those companies during deployments. They didn't get spooked easily. But that man? He sounded spooked. Outside the restroom, I scanned the room. My dad was sitting stiff in the back pew, staring ahead like he was still watching the casket. My mother sat beside him, twisting a tissue until it shredded. My brother Mitchell, always the talker, had somehow become the center of a small crowd offering condolences. He managed nods and sad smiles at just the right moments, almost like he'd practiced. I moved toward them, but halfway across the room, my steps faltered. Something was off. My brother's eyes weren't grieving. They were calculating. It reminded me too much of the way soldiers looked at a problem they didn't want the lieutenant to see yet. I'd spent 15 years reading expressions you weren't supposed to notice. I knew the look of someone with an agenda. And he had one. I turned, pretending to adjust the sleeve of my jacket so no one would see me watching him. His wife, Beth, leaned in, whispering something too quietly to catch. But her face said enough. Annoyance, impatience, urgency, not grief. The same 3 expressions I'd seen on people who needed someone out of the way. I walked out before someone roped me back into a sympathy conversation I didn't have the bandwidth for. The sky outside was flat gray, the kind that made every building look washed out. The air tasted like winter, sharp and metallic. I pulled my coat tighter, regretting the dress uniform beneath it. My shoulders ached. Formal wear never mixed well with the body armor habits you carry after years in the military. I leaned against the cold brick wall of the funeral home and called up my voicemail. The message from my sister's boss played again, low and tight with urgency. Laura, it's David Grant. I'm sorry for the timing, but you need to come by the office. There are documents in her desk I think she meant for you. Do not bring your family, I mean it. I listened twice, then a third time. In the military you learn to hear what isn't being said, and he wasn't just telling me to avoid drama. He was warning me. When I stepped back inside, the voices in the main room had dropped. A few people had already left. My brother caught my eye, gave me a rehearsed sad half-smile, and waved me over. His wife's posture straightened like she was preparing for a briefing. I pretended not to see them and went to my parents first. My dad didn't look up until I touched his arm. The reaction was immediate. A flinch he tried to turn into a sigh. You okay? I asked quietly. He nodded, but it was the kind of nod that meant absolutely nothing. My mother reached for my hand. Her grip was cold and trembling. She looked older today, like my sister's death had aged her 10 years. We need to go home soon, she whispered. Your father needs to rest. She wasn't wrong, but I couldn't shake the feeling that going home meant locking ourselves inside a box where something dangerous was already waiting. My brother approached, hands in his pockets, playing casual. Hey, he said, lowering his voice. I need to talk to you about something, later tonight. About what? He glanced at our parents, then back at me. Not here. My instincts tightened. Not here was exactly what someone says when the here is too public for whatever they don't want overheard. In the service, that phrase usually meant trouble or a decision someone would regret. What's it regarding? I asked, keeping my tone controlled. He forced a sympathetic smile. Just paperwork stuff. Estate things, the boring legal side. You know how it is. Actually, I did. All too well. The military taught me more about paperwork traps than combat ever did. Legal phrasing could bury someone faster than a bomb. Before I could answer, his wife stepped closer, smiling way too wide for someone whose sister-in-law had just been buried. We found some documents she was working on, she said softly. We think she meant for the family to sign off. It'll help with the process. No. My stomach tightened. Process was a word people used when they wanted something signed without questions. What documents? I asked. Her smile tightened. We'll show you tonight. That won't work for me. They exchanged a quick look, the kind that said they hadn't considered I might refuse. My brother leaned in. Laura, you don't need to make this difficult. There it was. The wrong sentence at the wrong time to the wrong person. I looked him straight in the eye. You're assuming it's supposed to be easy. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it when our mother glanced over. He stepped back, jaw tight. I excused myself again before the room got smaller. I didn't want to explode at him in front of our parents. Not today. Instead, I went to the hallway where no one else stood and texted David Grant. This is Laura, I can come now. He replied almost instantly. Not the office. Meet me at the staff entrance. 15 minutes. No. I pocketed my phone and walked back into the main room. My mother asked where I was going. I kissed her cheek and said I needed fresh air. I didn't tell her I was leaving. I didn't tell anyone. I just walked out, keys in hand, feeling the weight of every pair of eyes that might have been watching. But I had already decided. Whatever my sister left behind, I was going to see it. And nothing, not grief, not guilt, not family, was going to stop me from walking straight into the truth. Pulling away from the funeral home parking lot, I kept one hand tight on the steering wheel while the other hovered near my phone, waiting for any sudden message from Grant. The streets were mostly empty, the kind of quiet that made every stoplight feel like a spotlight on the wrong person. I wasn't paranoid by nature, but years in the military had trained me to assume people watched when they shouldn't. Today, that instinct didn't feel dramatic. It felt necessary. I drove around the block twice before pulling into the staff lot behind Grant's building. He wasn't outside, which instantly annoyed me. If a man was going to ask someone to sneak around like a criminal after a funeral, he should at least be punctual. I stepped out of the vehicle, locked it, and scanned the alley. A security camera blinked above the door. Good. If anything happened, at least there'd be footage proving I wasn't wandering around talking to myself. The door finally cracked open, and Grant stepped out. He looked older than he did at the funeral, like he'd aged 5 years in 90 minutes. His suit jacket was off, his tie loosened, and he held a thick folder under one arm. He wasn't the corporate type anymore. He looked like a man who'd been staring at something he didn't want to see. "Over here," he said, ushering me inside with the urgency of someone trying to hide a fugitive. The staff hallway was narrow and smelled like stale coffee and cleaning chemicals. He didn't stop until we were halfway down, where he swiped his badge on a side door and held it open for me. "Why aren't we in your office?" I asked. "Because I don't want anyone watching us go in," he said. "My office has windows, this one doesn't." The room he picked looked like an unused conference space, dim lights, metal chairs, one long table, no decor. Perfect for a conversation that shouldn't exist. He set the folder on the table but didn't open it. Instead, he looked at me like he wasn't sure if I was ready, or if he was. "Laura," he said quietly. "Your sister was working on something she didn't want anyone in your family to know about." The sentence felt rehearsed, like he'd gone over it in his head too many times. I kept my tone neutral. "She told you that?" "She implied it," repeatedly. I wait. Soldiers learn early that silence makes people keep talking. Grant swallowed hard. "She came to me 4 months ago. She said she suspected someone close to her was accessing things they shouldn't. Financial documents, passwords, bank accounts. She said files at home didn't look the same when she opened them. She said parts of her medical records were missing." A long breath escaped me without permission. "You're telling me she thought my family was doing it?" "I'm telling you she didn't trust them. And she didn't want them knowing she didn't trust them." He finally opened the folder. Inside were printed emails, screenshots, financial statements, and a handful of sticky notes in my sister's handwriting. Her handwriting hit me harder than I expected. Clean, even, familiar. A small detail that made everything suddenly too real. "Start here," he said, tapping a printed email chain. I scanned the top message. It was from Grant to my sister. "Confirming our conversation. Keep everything documented. Bring hard copies only. No." She replied hours later. "They're watching my accounts. I think someone is tracking what I print." I set the paper down carefully. "She never said anything to me." "She didn't tell me everything either," Grant said. "She only said she was collecting proof. She was scared to even print it in the office. She said she felt like she was being monitored." Monitored wasn't a word my sister used lightly. She was an accountant, practical, grounded, allergic to drama. "What made her think my brother or his wife were involved?" I asked. Grant flipped to a set of screenshots. Bank withdrawals, credit card advances, loan applications, all linked to accounts my sister shared with my parents for estate planning. "She noticed money missing," he said. "Small amounts at first, 200 here, 500 there. But over 4 months, it added up to thousands." "No. And my parents never saw it?" She said the transactions were labeled as routine household expenses. No one questioned it. "Except her," I said. "Except her," he confirmed. I looked closer. The timestamps on the transactions were always early morning between 5 and 6:30 a.m. My sister didn't make financial moves at dawn. She barely woke up before 8 unless the IRS threatened to audit the entire nation. Then another detail punched me harder, the withdrawal locations. 2 miles from Mitchell's house. Every time. Grant watched my expression. "She confronted them?" "No," he said. "She was planning to, but then she started getting sick." I stiffened. "Meaning?" He slid over a note written on a small yellow post-it, her handwriting again. "Symptoms worse after meals at their house. Something is wrong, and I don't know how to prove it yet. If anything happens to me, check the bank withdrawals." The air felt thinner. "You think they poisoned her?" I asked, the words sharper than I intended. I think she believed someone was, Grant said. And I think she was trying to collect evidence before she confronted them. I leaned back in the chair, my pulse thudding in my temples. I'd seen poisoning cases during deployment. Slow drip poisons were common tactics when someone wanted plausible deniability. But inside a family? That was a new level of hell. Grant hesitated before pushing a small white envelope toward me. She left this in her desk, it had your name on it. I picked it up, immediately recognizing her handwriting again. The envelope was thin, soft at the corners, sealed but worn, like she'd carried it for weeks before deciding where to leave it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. New greeting, new apology, new preamble. Just one line. If something happens to me, don't trust anyone until you see what David shows you. No. My hands tightened around the page. This isn't enough for the police, I said. Grant nodded. Not yet. But it's enough to say something wasn't right, and it's enough to make you look deeper. He closed the folder and slid it toward me. All of this is yours, he said. Your sister wanted you to be the one holding it. I didn't touch the folder. I kept both hands on the table, grounding myself. Why me, I asked. Because you're the only one she trusted to finish what she started. Now, I didn't have a response. My thoughts were moving too fast. My sister suspected my brother and his wife of financial theft, medical interference, and intentional harm. And she left a trail of evidence pointing straight at them. Grant stood, checking the hallway through the small rectangular window in the door. You should leave by the side exit, he said, and be careful driving home. I didn't ask what he meant by careful. I picked up the folder, tucked it under my arm, and walked out without another word. The hallway felt longer this time, and the air colder. Outside, the wind pushed against me like a warning. My phone buzzed the moment I reached my car. A message from my brother. Where are you? We need to meet tonight. It's important. I slid the phone back into my pocket without answering and unlocked my car. The folder sat on the passenger seat. And I drove. Knowing the road ahead wasn't just grief, it was proof of something far worse waiting to be uncovered. The engine was still warm when I parked outside the federal building, and the folder on my passenger seat felt heavier than it had an hour earlier. I carried classified intel more than once in my career, but nothing ever sat on my conscience like this stack of papers. I locked the car, squared my shoulders, and walked toward the glass doors with the same steady pace I used when reporting for deployment briefings. My stomach tightened anyway. Inside, the lobby buzzed with the low hum of printers, keyboards, and agents who looked like they'd had their fill of the world long before lunch. The receptionist barely looked up. Appointment? She asked. Special Agent Marcus Hale. He's expecting me. My voice stayed firm. One perk of military service, no one questions your tone when it sounds like you've dealt with worse. She tapped a few keys. Elevator C, 3rd floor, badge in. The ride-up was short, but the silence felt too loud. My reflection in the elevator door looked like someone who hadn't slept in days and was pretending otherwise. I stepped out the moment the doors opened, following the frosted window panels until I reached Hale's office. The door was cracked open. I knocked once and entered. Agent Hale stood behind his desk like he'd been waiting in that exact position for hours. Late 40s, tall, sharp jaw, the kind of man who probably didn't smile unless someone was getting indicted. He extended a hand. Sergeant Laura Kent, he said. I read your email. You said your sister left evidence suggesting foul play. I placed the folder on his desk. She didn't leave it for you. She left it for me. But I need your help to make sense of it. Now. His eyes narrowed, not suspicious, but focused. Sit. Saturday. He opened the folder and scanned quickly, flipping pages with precise fingers. He paused at the screenshots of bank withdrawals. These patterns look deliberate, he said. Consistent location, consistent timing, not hers. She didn't make those withdrawals, I confirmed. He moved on to the sticky notes, then to the envelope she'd left for me. He read her single line twice. Your sister was scared, he said. She didn't scare easily. Which tells me whoever she suspected was close. I didn't respond. I didn't have to. He could see exactly what direction the evidence pointed. He closed the folder. I need you to walk me through everything. Start with her symptoms. I described them as precisely as I could: nausea, hair loss, dizziness, weight loss, fatigue. He scribbled notes. Medical records? He asked. Missing from her portal, I said. She complained about it. Grant, her boss, said she mentioned files being altered. Which means someone had access, he said. I nodded. And her husband? He asked. Did she ever mention fear of him? My jaw tightened. She didn't have a husband. She had my brother and his wife inserting themselves into everything. He caught the tone immediately. Your relationship with them? Functional, I said, not warm. His eyebrow lifted slightly. Functional is usually code for strained. No. They were around her constantly the last few months, I said. Offering help no one asked for. Pushing to take over tasks she didn't need help with. She said they were smothering her. He leaned back. And you think they wanted access? To her accounts? Her health? Her routine? They had motive, proximity, and time, I said. And she knew it. He paused, then opened a drawer and pulled out 2 evidence bags, empty but clean. I can open a preliminary inquiry, he said. Not a full investigation, not yet. But I can evaluate her medical history, the financial trail, and any forensics tied to her symptoms. That's all I'm asking. I didn't say I was done, he said. I also need full consent from next of kin to access her records. I'm next of kin, she designated me. Then we'll proceed. He sealed the folder into the first evidence bag and labeled it. I felt a tightness in my chest loosen, not relief, but validation. Someone official finally took this seriously. Then he asked the question every investigator eventually asks. Why come to me? Why not take this straight to the police? Because my sister told me not to trust anyone until I saw what David shows you, I said. She didn't trust the local police. She didn't trust her circle. She trusted me and someone above the noise. He accepted that with a short nod. And you don't think your family would interfere? I gave a humorless laugh. Interfere? My brother texted me before I got here asking to meet tonight. Hale's expression sharpened. You didn't respond? No. Good, he said. Don't, not yet. He tapped the desk once, a habit of someone processing fast. Sergeant Kent, he said, I'm going to assign a field analyst to run point on the financial side while I focus on her medical timeline. This will stay quiet, no notifications to your family. Understood. And one more thing, he added. Your sister wasn't just documenting transactions. She was documenting patterns. Patterns like hers don't happen by luck. I didn't ask for clarification. I already knew. He stood. Let's go to records. I want signatures today. We walked down a hallway of locked doors and ID scanners. I signed document after document, each one heavier than the last. Consent forms, information releases, chain of custody acknowledgements. Hale kept everything organized, sliding each page into its place with measured control. We'll need her full medical list, Hale said. Prescriptions, supplements, anything she ingested regularly. I can get that. We'll also need her doctor's contact. And anyone else with access to her home. My brother and his wife had keys, I said. Hale glanced at me. Of course they did. The paperwork ended, but he didn't dismiss me. Instead, he walked me back to his office and handed me a card. This is my direct line. No voicemail, it rings through to me. I pocketed it. So what happens now? Now, he said, I start pulling her medical test results from the last 6 months, and I want you paying attention to anyone who tries contacting you. Anyone acting nervous, insistent, or unusually polite. Like my brother? Exactly like your brother. We didn't shake hands again. He simply nodded, and I took that as permission to go. The hallway felt colder on the way out, but my steps felt firmer. Outside, the sunlight had shifted, sharp enough to sting my eyes. I walked to my car, unlocked it, and sat with both hands gripping the steering wheel. The folder was gone now, sealed in evidence inside a federal building. But the weight of it didn't lift. My phone buzzed again. Another message from my brother. We need to talk. Tonight. I silenced it without opening it and started the engine. The RPMs rose cleanly, steady, familiar. I pulled out of the lot and merged into traffic. The city moving around me like nothing was wrong. But the truth was already taking shape in my mind, piece by piece, and nothing about it felt accidental. I kept my phone face down on the passenger seat the entire drive home, refusing to give my brother even a sliver of attention. The last thing I needed was him sensing hesitation. I dealt with insurgents overseas who were easier to read than my own family, and that thought alone told me enough about where things stood. The moment I pulled into Megan's driveway, my instincts flared, lights were off, blinds closed, everything too still for mid-afternoon. I was staying at her place to manage the estate. but it still felt like I was walking into a stranger's territory. I stepped out slowly, surveying the street the way Hale would have wanted. A delivery truck rumbled down the block, a dog barked from behind a fence, a neighbor dragged a trash bin without looking up. Normal, but normal had lost its meaning this week. Inside, I locked the door, dropped my keys, and set my phone on the counter. The house was quiet except for the hum of the fridge. I opened the laptop I'd avoided for 2 days, logged into my sister's cloud accounts using the passwords she'd whispered to me once during a wine-fueled holiday rant about backing up everything because nobody else in this family can organize a sock drawer. Her voice lived in those memories in a way that made my throat tighten, but I stayed focused. Her files populated the screen tax spreadsheets, budgeting templates, account summaries, very her, but buried 3 folders deep, behind some project labeled Audits Q3, something stuck out. A folder titled Red Flags. I clicked it. Inside were scanned receipts, screenshots of missing medical portal pages, and notes written in her neat, teacher-grade handwriting. She tracked every incident, every symptom, every transaction. She wasn't guessing, she was building a case. I zoomed in on one screenshot. Withdrawal, $1,200. Time, 5:14 a.m. Location, gas station 2 miles from Mitchell's house. The pattern Hale spotted was even clearer here. 14 withdrawals, always within a 2-mile radius of Mitchell's place. Always when my sister was either asleep or too sick to get out of bed. My phone buzzed again, I ignored it. Then it buzzed twice more. Against my better judgment, I checked. Mitchell. Where are you? Mitchell. Pick up. Mitchell. We need to talk before people get the wrong idea. 9. Wrong idea about what? That your sister died mysteriously while you handled her finances like a raccoon in a vending machine? That she left a breadcrumb trail pointing straight at you and your wife? I turned the phone off completely. My laptop pinged an alert for an old email backup I'd forgotten to disconnect. The notification displayed the sender's name. From Megan Kemp. Subject. If anything happens to me, the hairs on the back of my neck rose. I opened the email. It was short. Laura, I don't know if I'm being paranoid, but something is happening to my health and I can't find a medical explanation. If anything happens to me, I left notes with David. You're the only one who won't let it get brushed off. I'm sorry. She never pressed send. The timestamp indicated she drafted it at 2:03 a.m. You don't draft an email like that unless you're afraid to commit it to the world. She saved it instead. I sat back, elbows on the table, fingers pressed to my forehead. This wasn't just suspicion anymore. This was deliberate documentation by someone who knew an attack when she saw one. My sister didn't use dramatic language. She wasn't cryptic. If she wrote, "If anything happens to me," she meant exactly that. I pulled up her phone backups next. Voicemails, texts, call logs, everything mirrored from her cloud. In her recent calls, one number repeated dozens of times. My brother's. At first, short calls 30 seconds, 50 seconds. Then longer ones, 12 minutes, 20 minutes, almost daily. But then the pattern reversed. The calls became fewer, shorter, sharper. The tone in the transcripts turned clipped. Frustrated. Cold. One voicemail caught my attention. 10 days before she died. Megan, pick up. We need to settle this. I told you we'd fix it. Just answer the phone. His voice was calm but unnaturally calm. The kind people use when they're pretending not to yell. Another voicemail from the same day. Megan, this isn't funny. You're scaring Beth. Call me back. Beth. Always Beth. Their sudden involvement in every detail of her life made sense now. They weren't helping. They were controlling access, controlling information, and maybe controlling her health. I minimized the screen and stared at the wall. My military training gave me discipline, but it didn't prepare me for the kind of betrayal that walked around wearing family holidays and shared childhood memories like disguises. I logged into my sister's bank app using her credentials. Some accounts were locked for privacy, but Hale would get those. What I could see was enough. A steady decline in available funds, masked by routine transfers that were anything but routine. Then I noticed one more thing, an account I didn't recognize. A sub-account she never mentioned. Hidden under a label only accountants would find, Home Repair Reserve 2019. Inside it was a single file. No financial documents. No spreadsheets. Just video footage. My breath caught. I clicked it before I realized I should have braced myself. It was dated 3 months before she died. A camera was angled at her kitchen counter. She looked thinner than I remembered, tired, moving slower. She reached for a water bottle, twisted the cap, and paused like she was trying to smell something off. Then a shadow moved behind her. Mitchell. He didn't see the camera. He didn't hear it either. He reached into a drawer, took out a small white container, shook out powder into his palm, and tapped it into her mug. His face stayed unreadable, casual, the way someone sprinkles sugar, not poison. I paused the frame, zoomed in. The label on the bottle had been peeled off. Intentional. My hands curled into fists so tight my knuckles burned. My sister didn't imagine being poisoned. She didn't get sick. She didn't die mysteriously. Someone poisoned her in her own kitchen. While she stood 10 feet away. While she trusted them. While she didn't know she was filming her own evidence. My phone vibrated violently against the counter. Forced back to life from the charger's jolt, I picked it up. Mitchell. We're coming over. This can't wait. No. I closed my laptop calmly, slid the device into a backpack, and zipped it shut in one slow, steady motion. The kind of motion I used before entering a hostile house overseas. A familiar focus settled into my muscles. Not panic. Not fear. Readiness. I checked the peephole, then the windows. Street still normal. My streetlights flickered on as the sky dimmed. A car engine rumbled in the distance. My phone buzzed again. Mitchell. On our way. Now. No more pretending this was just grief or suspicion. No more brushing off instinct. My sister didn't just leave notes. She left a trail. And I had followed it far enough to know exactly who waited at the end. The backpack strap dug into my shoulder as I moved through Megan's house, checking each window with a calmness I didn't entirely trust. I'd felt this kind of clarity before, once in Kandahar, once in a compound where the walls shook from incoming fire, and both times it meant trouble was seconds away. I shut off every light except the one above the stove. Soft glow enough to move, not enough to silhouette myself. The car engine I'd heard earlier grew louder, turning onto the street with a low hum that didn't belong to a stranger. I stepped into the kitchen, slid my sister's laptop deeper into the bag, and pulled the zipper until the teeth met without a gap. Headlights passed the front windows, then cut across the living room wall as a vehicle slowed. I didn't bother checking. I knew the sound of my brother's SUV. It had the same groaning belt for 2 years, a sound he claimed he'd fix next weekend, but never did. The engine shut off, doors opened, voices carried. Beth's voice first sharp, clipped, irritated. Mitchell's right after quieter, but with an edge like he'd rehearsed a story on the way over and didn't like how it sounded. I exhaled once, steady, and walked to the entryway. The knock came before I got there. No hesitation. 3 loud hits. The kind people use when they already feel entitled to be inside. I didn't open the door. Laura, my brother called, voice low. We saw your car. Open up. I kept my tone flat. Why are you here? Beth answered instead, leaning closer to the door. This isn't the time for games. Open the door. Games. The woman who had hovered over my sister's hospital bed as if she were auditioning for a concerned relative of the year, now wanted to call me dramatic. I unlocked the deadbolt but kept the chain on. I opened the door 2 inches, just enough to see their faces. Mitchell looked pale, sweaty, too many inconsistencies in one face. Beth looked annoyed, not grieving. Her arms folded across her chest like she was waiting for a delayed meeting, not approaching the sister of a dead woman. We need to talk, Mitchell said. Then talk, I answered, not moving the chain. Beth sighed, frustrated. Not through a crack in the door. Let us in. No. Mitchell blinked, thrown. What do you mean, no? It's a simple word, I said. I can spell it if you need. Beth's nostrils flared. We came all the way across town. Not for my benefit, I said. Say what you need to say. Mitchell rubbed his face as if trying to collect himself. People are asking questions. They tend to do that when someone dies, I said. No, he snapped. They're asking questions about us. Bingo. Not Megan. Not her death. Not what happened. Us. Beth stepped forward, lowering her voice as if the neighbors might be recording. Someone told the police we were with Megan the day before she collapsed. You were, I said. That's not the point, she snapped. The police asked if she complained about anything, if she argued with us, if we gave her anything to drink. I let the silence sit. I didn't help them. I didn't feed them. They dug their own graves faster that way. Why would they ask that? Mitchell demanded. Maybe you should tell me, I said. Beth scoffed. This is ridiculous. We came here because your behavior is making us look guilty. I raised an eyebrow. Is it? Beth swallowed hard and her eyes flicked to Mitchell. It was tiny, but I noticed it. She wanted him to talk, not her. That wasn't normal for her. Beth liked being the mouthpiece. If she was deferring now, then something had rattled her. Mitchell tried to regain control. Look, he said. I know you're upset. I know you're emotional. But you can't just go around accusing people. I haven't accused you, I said. You talked to someone, he snapped. Who? I asked. He froze. He didn't have a name. He only had fear. Beth stepped in again. This needs to stop. Now. Whatever documents you think you have, whatever theories you're entertaining, it ends here. She said it like a threat, not a plea. I leaned against the doorframe. No one mentioned documents. Beth's eyes widened, not much, but enough. There it was. Confirmation without effort. I loosened the chain but didn't remove it, letting the door open an inch wider. If you came here to confess, now's your chance. Mitchell's face twisted. Confess? Confess to what? I didn't say, I said. Interesting that you did. Beth's patience snapped. You've lost it, she said. You're letting grief turn you into a paranoid mess. You think so? I asked. Yes, she said. Then explain something. I let them stew for 2 breaths. When Megan got sick, who suggested she switch to home meals instead of picking up takeout? Beth opened her mouth, caught herself and closed it. And who offered to meal prep for her because she was too tired? Neither answered. I continued, voice steady. Who kept insisting she drink more electrolyte mixes? Who said dehydration was getting dangerous? Who insisted on bringing her drinks already prepared because it was easier? Beth's face reddened. You're twisting things. No. Mitchell clenched his jaw. Enough, open the door. No. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You think you're smarter than everyone. You think you know what's going on. Smarter? No, I said. Just observant. My phone buzzed on the table behind me. I didn't check it. Mitchell's patience finally cracked. We're coming inside. No, you're not. He reached toward the door, but I slammed it shut and locked both bolts before his hand touched the frame. His fist hit the door harder than I expected. Open the door, Laura. I didn't respond. I walked away from the entry, grabbed my bag off the chair, and headed toward the back of the house. Their voices followed. You're making a mistake. You're ruining everything. Open the door. A loud kick rattled the frame. Not enough to break it, but enough to prove they weren't thinking clearly anymore. I didn't wait to see if they'd try again. I slipped out the back, locked the door behind me, and crossed the yard quickly, cutting through the neighbor's gate with the code they'd given me years ago when I fed their dog on vacation. The street behind us was quiet. I jogged to my car, got in, and started the engine as calmly as if I were leaving a grocery store. My phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. Agent Hale, call me as soon as you're safe. I pulled away from the curb, checking my mirrors. Mitchell's SUV still sat in front of Megan's house. Doors open, both of them pacing. I drove, the road unfolding in front of me, the city lights flickering on as if nothing had shifted. But everything had. Their panic wasn't random. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't grief. It was fear of exposure. Fear of the evidence my sister left. Fear of what I now knew. The parking lot outside the FBI building was nearly empty when I pulled in, which made it easier to see the same black SUV that had been sitting there earlier, unmarked, utilitarian, and occupied. Hale's doing, not my brother's. I recognized the shape of federal surveillance long before the driver lifted a hand in acknowledgement. I returned the gesture with a nod and headed inside. The moment the elevator doors opened onto Hale's floor, he was already waiting for me. He didn't waste time on greetings. You were right not to let them in, he said. Come on. He led me into an evidence room, cold, fluorescent, sterile. A long metal table sat in the center, with 3 plastic bins lined up neatly. Each bin was labeled in black marker. Finances, medical, home. Hale gestured to the first. We pulled everything we could from her bank accounts, he said. Your sister documented more than we knew. Now, he opened the bin and laid out a sheet covered in red highlighted transactions. The pattern hit me instantly. 12 withdrawals over 6 weeks. All from the same corridor near Mitchell's house. We confirmed the cameras at those locations, Hale said. Footage is only kept 30 days, but we got lucky with the last 2. He clicked a monitor on the table. Footage played grainy. Time-stamped. A man in a hooded sweatshirt stepped up to an ATM. Broad shoulders. Same stance I grew up seeing at the kitchen counter. Even pixelated, I recognized the way he shifted his weight. That's him, I said. Hale nodded, not surprised. We matched the height and gait. It's your brother. He used your sister's card 9 times. He paused. Then we checked your sister's emails. He moved to the second bin medical and slid out a printed timeline. She reported symptoms 6 weeks before her first hospital visit, Hale said. Her doctor ordered blood work, but half the results never made it to her portal. Meaning? I asked. Meaning someone with access filtered what she could see, he said. She only saw the results that looked normal. The ones showing abnormalities were downloaded, viewed, and deleted. From whose IP address? Hale looked at me with a heaviness I'd expected and dreaded. Your brother's house. I kept my posture steady, even as my jaw clenched, Hale continued. Her potassium levels were erratic. Liver enzymes spiking, classic early indicators of slow-acting toxins. He reached for a small evidence bag. Inside was a printed page, her lab results, stamped but never forwarded to her. She wasn't imagining it, Hale said. She never did, I replied. He set that evidence aside and opened the third bin home. Inside were printouts from the video I'd found, the frame-by-frame stills of Mitchell with the unmarked powder. Hale tapped the corner of one still. We ran enhancement software. The bottle label was peeled off halfway, but the glue pattern matches a supplement container sold online, pure-form arsenic compounds marketed as agricultural use. Purchased using a prepaid card. Who bought it? I asked. A card registered under a fake name, he said, but shipped to a pickup locker 2 blocks from your brother's office. He didn't need to tell me who retrieved it. Hale folded his arms. Your sister set up that camera on purpose. She suspected enough to record her own kitchen. She did, I said, and she hid it in a folder he wouldn't think to check. He gave one tight nod. Which means she knew the threat was inside her own home routine. For a moment, the room felt too small, too bright, too close to the truth no one wanted. Hale broke the silence. I need to know what happened tonight. 1. I told him everything, Mitchell and Beth showing up, demanding to come in, their rising panic, their slip-ups. Hale listened without interrupting once. Were they aggressive? He finally asked. They were desperate, I said. Aggressive comes next. Did they see any of the evidence you found? No, I said. But they know I have something. Good, Hale replied. Good. The words stung in a way that made sense only to investigators. It meant leverage. Hale grabbed a file from his desk and handed it to me. This is everything we've confirmed so far. Enough to justify moving forward. Forward with what? I asked, though I already knew. Authorization for surveillance, search warrants, and a controlled operation. I opened the file. Inside was a draft affidavit with my name listed as reporting witness. Under it, a list of items the FBI intended to seize. Financial records, electronic devices, supplements, containers, medical supplies. Hale tapped the section labeled Controlled Interaction Protocol. We'll need a clean opportunity to observe them attempting to control you, he said, to confirm intent to manipulate or silence you. You want me to engage them, I said. I want them to reveal themselves, he answered. And they will. Pressure makes people like them sloppy. They were already sloppy, I said. Yes, he said. But we need them sloppy on record. I exhaled sharply through my nose. What does this look like in practice? Hale paced once, thinking. They're expecting you to break, to apologize, to cooperate. That's their playbook. And you want me to let them think it's working. Temporarily, he said. Enough to get them comfortable. I closed the file. They came to Megan's house tonight. They didn't look comfortable. That's why we move quickly, he said. You will meet them again, but not alone. Now. He walked to a cabinet, unlocked it, and removed a small device, a thin button mic with a nearly invisible wire. This is live feed audio, he said. Range about 100 feet. Backup recorder included. I didn't hesitate. Show me where it attaches. Near your collarbone, he said. Under a jacket keeps it steady, no bulky jewelry. I nodded. Had it been anyone else, they might have explained how sensitive the mic was, or how crucial it was not to touch it. I didn't need the lecture. I'd worn smaller devices in worse conditions. Hale continued, "We'll also have 2 agents nearby, one in an unmarked vehicle, the other on foot." "What's my goal?" I asked. "Keep them talking," he said. "Let them feel out your mindset. Let them expose pressure points." "They're not subtle," I said. "They don't have to be," Hale replied. "They just have to be recorded." He handed me a burner phone. "This is how you contact me. Use it only when you're away from your family." Lection. Then he added, "And whatever you do, don't go back to the house tonight." I slipped the burner into my jacket. I wasn't planning to. As I walked toward the exit, Hale stopped me with one more question, quiet, pointed. "Sergeant Kent," he said. "Do you know what they want from you now?" "Yes," I answered. "Control." "And do you know what you want from them?" I turned the doorknob and met his eyes. The truth. Lol. The hallway outside felt colder, but my steps were steady as I left the building. In the parking lot, the surveillance SUV was still there, headlights catching my reflection in the window. I didn't see fear in my face. Just purpose. The kind that comes when the trail isn't speculation anymore, but proof. I left the federal building with the burner phone tucked inside my jacket and the mic device secured beneath the collar just the way Hale showed me. The cool night air met my face as I crossed the lot, steady and deliberate, the kind of steady that came from muscle memory learned in places where hesitation wasn't an option. I unlocked my car, slid inside, and let the engine idle while I adjusted the seatbelt across the mic without disturbing it. My real phone stayed powered off in my bag. The burner buzzed once the moment I was on the road. "Hale, confirm you're alone." "I'm alone," I said. "Good. 2 agents are positioned near the house. You're not going back in, but we need you close. Just tell me the location." He gave me an address 2 blocks from my place, a small public park with broken lamps and a single bench where teenagers usually hid to vape. I pulled up 10 minutes later, scanning the area the way I'd scan an unsecured checkpoint. A figure sat on the far bench pretending to scroll his phone. Agent on foot. The SUV from earlier idled on the street beside the park, windows tinted. I sat in my car, letting the darkness settle around me. My sister's laptop bag lay on the passenger seat like a secondary heartbeat. Every page inside it, every screenshot, every note, every still frame was part of a map she built long before she died, and I wasn't about to drop anything now. The burner buzzed again. "Unknown. We're outside. Why aren't you answering your phone?" "Mitchell." Not even pretending to hide his number now. Another message followed immediately. "Mitchell. We saw your lights off. Where are you?" Then a third. "Beth. This is getting stupid. Come home, we need to settle things. Tonight." Settle things. The same phrase he'd used in that voicemail to Megan. I stared at the screen, considering the exact tone I needed to pull off. Hale had told me to let them think they were regaining control, but not to the point of letting them inside any physical proximity I couldn't break. I typed back one short sentence. "I'm out. Give me 20 minutes. 3 dots appeared instantly, Beth typing something long, but I turned the phone face down before reading it. A light tap on my car window made me look up. The agent from the bench leaned down just enough to speak without being seen by anyone else. "You'll meet them where?" he asked. "Neutral location," I said. "Public, open, not isolated." "They'll resist that," he warned. "I know," I said. "Don't let them push you to a second location. You know the drill." I nodded once. "When I leave, give me space. They can't sense they're being watched." He stepped back into the shadows. I picked up the burner again and scrolled to Mitchell's thread. He'd sent 5 new messages in under a minute. "Where are you?" "Now. We're going in if you don't answer. Open the door, or we will. This is your last chance. Laura, answer me now." I sent a single reply. "Meet me at the Oak Ridge parking lot, 20 minutes. The location was deliberate, semi-public, wide sightlines, only one exit, and enough traffic to prevent anything dramatic without witnesses. And more importantly, close enough for Hale's team. The dots blinked. Then finally, "Mitchell. Fine. No." I locked my car, took one more breath, and started driving. Traffic lights cast brief flashes over the dashboard as I approached the lot. The space was mostly empty except for a few cars near the shopping center and one truck idling near the back. I parked facing the exit habit and kept my hands visible on the steering wheel. 5 minutes passed. 6. 7. Then their SUV pulled in, headlights sweeping across the pavement like a search beam. They parked too close uncomfortably, intrusively close, forcing me to open my door cautiously. I stepped out, keeping my stance loose but grounded, like just another woman dealing with just another family problem in just another parking lot at night. Beth jumped out of their car first. "You want to explain what that stunt was?" she snapped. "No," I said. Mitchell followed, jaw tight, eyes darting around like he was expecting someone to jump out of the bushes. He stepped toward me with his hands out, palms open like he was trying to look harmless. It failed. "Look," he said, "this can't keep happening. You're acting unstable." "Am I?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "You're accusing people of things that make no sense. Checking her accounts, going through her files." I cut him off. "How do you know what I've checked?" He froze. "Just long enough." Beth jumped in instead. "She was our family too," she said, voice dripping with forced softness. "We deserve to know what you're planning." I gave her a flat stare. "Planning?" "Yes," she said. "You're feeding stories to people. You're making us out to be villains." My pulse stayed steady, mic perfectly still. "I haven't said anything," I replied. "But you're sounding defensive." "Because you're acting like a cop," she snapped. "You're treating us like suspects." I watched them shift. Nervous energy, twitchy posture. They were guessing where the cracks were. I kept my voice even. "What are you afraid I found?" Mitchell exhaled loudly. "This is the problem. You twist everything." "Everything?" I asked. "Yes." His voice rose. "Bank withdrawals, calls, meals, you're trying to make us look guilty." "You are guilty," I said calmly. Beth's eyes widened. "What did you say?" "I said you're guilty." My voice stayed flat, direct. "You both are." A long, tight silence followed. Their faces changed, not grief, not hurt. Calculation. Mitchell glanced around the lot again, lowering his voice. "You need to stop talking like that." "Or what?" I asked. Beth stepped in, too quickly. "Or you're going to ruin your life." "And ours." I held her stare. She stepped closer. Whatever Megan thought she had, it died with her, you understand? There it was. Almost word for word what they'd said to Megan, according to one of her notes. Mitchell leaned in next, whispering like we were conspiring about something innocent. "Let's be reasonable. We can work this out. No need to drag anyone into anything they don't need to be part of." His tone made my skin crawl. I let the silence stretch before answering. "What exactly do you want from me?" Beth answered for him. "Drop it." And then Mitchell added, "Forget the files." "And the bank statements?" Beth said. "And the medical stuff," he added quickly. "There's no reason for you to look at any of that." Their phrasing overlapped, panicked, sloppy, incriminating. Hale's mic picked up every syllable. I crossed my arms. "You think I can't see what this is?" Mitchell's hand twitched. "See what?" "A cover-up," I said. Beth's jaw tightened. "You're crossing a line." "You crossed it first," I said. Mitchell stepped closer, too close, breath sharp, posture stiffening with anger. "Forget the files, Laura." I didn't step back. "I won't." Another silence. Longer, sharper. Then Beth finally broke. "Fine. If you want this to blow up your career, your life, go ahead, but don't say we didn't warn you." I uncrossed my arms. "Warning noted." Mitchell stared at me, something dark slipping through his expression that wasn't shock or panic anymore. It was resentment, the kind that builds long before the moment someone crosses a line. Beth tugged his sleeve. "Let's go." They walked back to their SUV in silence. The door slammed. The engine turned, headlights flashed, and they pulled out, not fast, not rushed. Controlled. I stood there until their taillights vanished past the exit. The burner buzzed in my hand. "Hale, we got everything, audio's clean, that was enough." I looked at the now empty lot, the long stretch of asphalt, the cool air against my face. "It's not everything," I said. "Not yet. No." But it was enough to keep walking into whatever came next without hesitation. Not because I had to, but because the truth was finally moving into the open where it belonged. I stayed in the parking lot long enough for the last trace of their SUV to disappear down the main road. The air felt colder when the engine noise faded, almost like the whole lot exhaled with me. I walked back to my car, unlocked it with the burner phone still in hand, and kept the mic steady under my jacket collar. Before I even sat down, the phone buzzed again. "Hale, Drive back toward the neighborhood. Don't turn onto the street. Wait for my call. His voice was calm, controlled, the kind of steady tone that meant things were already moving. I didn't bother replying. I got in the car, buckled in, and pulled out onto the road with a level focus that came from deployments, not grief. 10 minutes later, I reached the cross street near Megan's house. A few cars rolled past like any ordinary evening. But the street was darker than normal, quiet, no porch lights, barely any traffic. Easy to miss unless you were looking for it. I pulled over near a fire hydrant and turned off my headlights. The burner lit up. Hale, stand by, we're in position. I leaned back in the seat. Not relaxed, just settling into the kind of readiness my muscles remembered from patrols that ended in either silence or explosions. I watched two corners of the neighborhood from where I Saturday. One had a jogger passing by with earbuds in real or undercover, I couldn't tell. Another had a pickup truck with its lights off that wasn't normally there. Then Hale's voice came through again. Your brother and his wife just entered the house. Is that a problem? I asked. It's an opportunity, he said. They're nervous. Nervous people leave trails. Now. I glanced down at the mic under my collar, a reminder that the operation wasn't about drama. It was about layering proof until no one could pull the seams apart. What now? I asked. They think you're on the way home, Hale said. We let them act on that panic. My fingers tightened briefly on the steering wheel. Meaning? We observe, he said, and we document. A quiet rustle of radio static followed. I looked down the street. The house sat halfway along the block, the kitchen window slightly visible through branches. The idea of them inside it made something tighten in my chest, anger, not fear. I'd already buried my sister. Losing the house she made her sanctuary wasn't on my list of acceptable sacrifices. The burner buzzed again. Hale, move in your vehicle 20 feet. They can't see you, but I want you closer. I started the car and rolled forward slowly, stopping before the intersection. My mirrors showed the street clearly. The house sat still, no lights flickering, no movement outside. Hale's voice returned. They're searching the living room. Beth's opening containers. Your brother's checking drawers. I kept my eyes forward. Looking for what? Anything they think you have, he said. Papers, drives, notes. They won't find it. They don't know that, he replied. More static, then a second voice, another agent. Movement, kitchen, he's opening the trash can. Lo. Of course he was. He was desperate enough to sift through garbage for clues on how much he'd been caught. I exhaled sharply through my nose. Do they look like they're preparing to run? Hale's pause told me he'd considered the same thing. No, he said, not running. They're looking for control. He didn't need to explain further. Control was their weapon. The only one they had left. Minutes passed while updates came in through bursts of calm communication. Beth's in the hallway. Now. Mitchell's checking under seat cushions. She's opening your mail. He's in the kitchen again. They're arguing. I didn't ask what about. Then Hale's tone sharpened. He's got something. My grip on the wheel tightened. What? Handwritten note, not yours. He's comparing handwriting to something on his phone. My stomach dropped not out of fear, but pure recognition. He found the letter she left me, I said. You didn't leave it behind, Hale said. No, but I dropped the photocopy envelope earlier. Near the bookshelf. That's what he has, Hale confirmed. Good. Perfect, actually. If he handled it, his prints would be on it. Not Mina. Then another update came in through radio. He's raising his voice. He thinks she hid more. Of course he did. People who poison others don't assume small mistakes. They assume they missed something big. Movement near the front window caught my eye. A shadow crossed behind the blinds, pacing fast, agitated. Laura, Hale said more quietly. They're escalating. That house is a pressure cooker. Once they decide you're not showing up, they'll either leave or destroy evidence. We can't let them do either. I inhaled slowly. So you move in. Correct, Hale said, on my signal. A beat. Then another. Then, breach team in position, a voice said over the radio. A low rumble approached from the far end of the street. Not loud enough to draw neighbors. Just enough for trained ears. Go, Hale said. The street erupted into controlled chaos. Two unmarked SUVs rolled forward, stopping sharply at angles that blocked escape. Doors flew open. Agents moved fast, low, coordinated. Lights clicked on in perfect timing, blue then white then steady bright beams trained on the house. I watched from my car, still, grounded, focused. Agents surrounded the property. One team moved to the front door, another to the side gate, another to the back. A loud bang echoed across the block, a tool hitting the doorframe. FBI! Voices shouted, firm and overlapping. Hands where we can see them. Shadows inside the house scrambled. Another bang. The door swung inward as agents poured in, announcing commands with crisp precision. Radios burst with updates. Kitchen clear. Hallway clear. 2 civilians in the living room? Hands secured. No. I stepped out of my car, then not rushing, not joining the crowd, just watching the scene unfold with a calm that surprised even me. Beth's voice broke into the night, first shrill, panicked, insisting she didn't know what was happening. Mitchell's voice followed, angry, defensive, frantic. As agents escorted them out, hands cuffed, faces lit by harsh LED beams, they looked more like strangers than family. Beth stumbled as she walked, her face blotchy with smeared makeup. Mitchell stared at the pavement like he was trying to find a version of events he could still manipulate. Hale emerged from the doorway, stepping into the spill of light with a file tucked under one arm. He wasn't smiling, but there was a certain resolution in the way he held himself. I walked up to him. Anything damaged? Only their confidence, he said. Agents moved in and out of the house, photographing, collecting, labeling. They searched your entire first floor, Hale said. Left fingerprints everywhere. And we recovered the letter they touched. I nodded once. Good. He looked beyond me to where Mitchell and Beth stood beside the SUVs. They didn't expect this, Hale said. No, I said. They expected me alone in the dark with my guard down. And instead, he said, you walked them straight into federal custody. I looked at the house, my sister's second home, now covered in evidence markers. Not straight, I said quietly. They took plenty of detours. Now, Hale didn't argue. Agents loaded the last of the seized items into the van. Mitchell finally looked up, meeting my eyes across the driveway. His expression wasn't confusion anymore. It wasn't panic. It was recognition, the moment someone realizes the version of reality they built is burning down and they can't put out the flames. He mouthed something I didn't bother interpreting. Beth did the opposite. She wouldn't look at me at all. Then the SUV doors closed, and both of them disappeared behind tinted glass. The street fell quiet again. Lights dimmed. Radio chatter faded. Hale turned back to me. This next phase moves quickly. I didn't need to ask what he meant. We both knew momentum was finally on my sister's side. Not because justice arrived on its own, but because she'd left the trail that guided us here without hesitation. Courtrooms in movies always look dramatic, echoing chambers, booming gavels, slow-motion reactions. Real federal courtrooms are quieter, colder, and a lot less forgiving. When I walked in on the first day of the trial, the air felt like it had been refrigerated on purpose. The walls were light wood, the benches were stiff, and the fluorescent lights hummed with the same steady indifference I'd heard in military barracks at 3 a.m. I took my seat near the front, close enough to hear every word without getting sucked into the spectacle behind me. Reporters whispered. Observers shuffled papers. A pair of true crime podcasters typed like they were competing in a keyboard speed contest. I kept my eyes forward. Mitchell and Beth were led in by U.S. Marshals. They were both dressed in modest, court-appropriate outfits that looked straight off a clearance rack. Probably chosen to make them appear harmless. It didn't work. Mitchell's jaw was locked, anger simmering just below the surface. Beth looked brittle, pale, like she'd cracked long before walking through the door. Neither looked at me. Hale entered next and walked to the prosecution table with the same steady posture he used during operations. The man didn't posture. He didn't signal confidence. He simply had it. The judge entered, the courtroom rose, and the trial began. The prosecutor started with a simple narrative. Megan Kemp, my sister, a respected accountant, began experiencing unexplained symptoms. She trusted certain family members more than she should have. Those family members exploited her access, drained her accounts, altered her medical records, and eventually poisoned her with a compound not meant for human consumption. The defense objected within the first 5 minutes, claiming speculation. The judge didn't even blink before dismissing them. Hale was called first. He handled the questions like he'd written the script himself. Calm, direct, pure facts. He guided the courtroom through the timeline, the bank withdrawals matching Mitchell's exact routine, the medical reports accessed from his home IP address, the purchase of arsenic compounds through the pickup locker. The edited medical pages. The poisoned meals. The footage grainy but undeniable of Mitchell adding powder to Megan's drink. Mitchell shifted in his seat at that part, leaning forward like he wanted to jump up and correct the projection on the screen. His attorney grabbed his arm, whispering urgently until he leaned back. I kept my breathing steady. Watching the video again didn't hit like it had the first time. This time, it felt less like a punch and more like confirmation, proof that my instincts, and my sister's instincts, were never wrong. Then the prosecution shifted to the audio recorded during the parking lot meeting. My voice filled the room first, matter-of-fact and calm. Then their voices frantic, overlapping, conflicted echoed through the speakers. Drop it. Forget the files. There's no reason for you to look at any of that. And the worst one, spoken by Beth, sharper than the rest. Whatever she had died with her. The courtroom stiffened as those words rang out. Even the reporters paused typing. Mitchell stared at the table so hard it looked like he was trying to burn through the wood. When the recording finished, the judge didn't hide her reaction. Her jaw tightened, and she took a slow breath through her nose. I'd seen that same expression from commanding officers right before disciplinary action. The defense tried to recover by calling character witnesses, a couple of coworkers, a neighbor, and a family acquaintance who claimed Mitchell would never hurt anyone. The prosecutor dismantled them all, piece by piece, by contrasting their claims with evidence. Cross-examination wasn't a bloodbath, it was a surgical procedure. Efficient. Precise. And then they called me. Hale gave me one reassuring nod as I walked up, but I didn't need it. I'd testified in military courts before. I knew how to anchor myself. I took the stand, placed my hand on the oath, and sat with my back straight. The prosecutor asked the basics first: my background, my relationship with Megan, my military service, my role as next of kin. Then she moved to the harder part. When did you first suspect something was wrong? I answered everything clearly: my sister's messages, her symptoms, the missing records, the fear in her voice when she talked about being watched. I described the notes she left, the panic in her handwriting, her attempts to protect herself without setting anyone off. Every word was steady, no dramatics, no embellishment. Her truth didn't need decoration. Then I recounted the night Mitchell and Beth came to Megan's house, how they demanded entry, how they insisted I drop it, how their phrasing matched the pressure they used on my sister. Their attorney objected twice: subjective interpretation and speculative emotional language. But the judge allowed almost everything through, noting that my testimony matched physical evidence and recorded audio. When I stepped down, Beth refused to look up. Mitchell glared at me with a mix of resentment and disbelief. Like he still expected me to cave out of some leftover childhood loyalty. He'd never understood I didn't operate on fear or guilt. Not anymore. The second week of the trial moved quickly. Financial analysts confirmed the embezzlement trail. Medical experts testified about arsenic levels. Toxicologists translated scientific language into straightforward explanations even the jury couldn't misinterpret. Then the final witness took the stand, a forensic digital analyst. He reconstructed the deleted files from Megan's portal, including the messages she never sent. Seeing her draft email on a large courtroom screen made my chest tighten in a way the video hadn't. Her words carried through the speakers softly. If anything happens to me, I know who it will be. The defense objected hearsay. The judge allowed it under the forfeiture rule. Mitchell's composure cracked. He tried to whisper to his attorney, voice too loud for a courtroom that had grown completely silent. His attorney grabbed his arm again, more firmly this time, and shook his head. Closing arguments ended with the prosecutor's voice firm, focused, and grounded. Megan Kemp did everything right. She noticed the signs, she documented the patterns. She tried to protect herself. She tried to warn her sister. And in the end, she left us everything we needed to see the truth. This wasn't random. It wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Not long, not rushed. Just enough to make the verdict feel inevitable. They filed back in. The foreperson stood. For the charge of first-degree murder, we find the defendant Mitchell Kemp guilty. Beth squeezed her eyes shut before the second verdict even started. For conspiracy and aiding in the administration of a toxic substance, we find the defendant Beth Kemp guilty. No. A few muffled gasps rose from the benches behind me. Someone whispered, "My God." The judge thanked the jury, dismissed them, and scheduled sentencing. Marshals approached both defendants. Mitchell stiffened but didn't fight. Beth collapsed into silent tears. Neither looked my way as they were escorted out. The courtroom slowly emptied. Reporters scrambled outside to get their sound bites. Lawyers gathered their stacks of documents. The hum of conversations floated around me like background noise. Hale walked over, hands in his pockets. "You did exactly what you needed to." "I know," I said. He gave a small nod approval, not praise. "Your sister made sure the truth wouldn't disappear. You made sure it wouldn't be ignored." We stepped outside. The sunlight hit sharper than it had the day of the raid, warmer than the day of the funeral. I stood on the courthouse steps and let the air settle around me, not triumph, not catharsis, just a quiet return to breathing without a weight on my ribs. The system had moved, the truth had a voice, and the people who'd counted on silence got the opposite. My sister left a trail. I followed it. And nothing about it felt like revenge. It felt like finishing what she started, with the same clarity she carried until her last breath.